Okay, guys, welcome to the Wednesday directions video. Just another note date today. We're going to go over some of the emperors that Rome has when they make that transition from the Republic to the Empire. We looked at the first empire or emperor the last time we did notes with Caesar Augustus, aka our guy named Octavian. So we saw him be the first one, obviously winning and kind of being the last man standing from the second triumvirate, um, and obviously leading Rome into a new age of emperors. So we're going to look at a couple of bad ones. We're going to look at a couple of good ones. I'm going to talk about the Colosseum and Circus Maximus today. So it should be a good one. Might be a little bit longer. It might be a two-part one, but I'm going to try to go fast for you guys. All right, so the first bad emperor we're going to talk about. All these stories are pretty crazy because a lot of the people who become the bad emperors are kind of, they either were insane to start or something happened to make them insane. So the first guy here is Tiberius. He's the second emperor. All right, so it's already off to a bad start. He hated Christians, ordered thousands to be put to death. He was on Rome's bad side because he also did not even live in Rome. He kind of lived in one of the Roman suburbs because he was really paranoid. And what he would do for fun is he would have big parties at his like estate there on top of this cliffside. And what he would do is for amusement at the party is that he would throw people off of the cliff to their death. Like it could be slaves. A lot of times it was Christians, but it would be like an event for his party. So Tiberius, lunatic, throws people off the cliffs. So that's the second emperor Rome ever had. So obviously off to not the best start for Rome. The second guy we're going to talk about is his name. We're going to refer to him as Caligula, right there. So Caligula is the second guy. And again, if you want to write these down, these will be on the quiz. So Caligula has kind of an interesting story. All right. So at first, he's a normal person. All right. So, but however, after Caligula had reigned for 8 months, he became severely ill. All right. Upon his recovery, his mind never recovered. All right. His mind stayed fatally injured. So this is where things start to get a little bit odd for him. So Caligula abandoned himself to cruelty and lust. He declared himself to be a god and would often go through the streets of Rome dressed as these different gods. All right. The Roman citizens were compelled to worship him, and he made the wealthiest citizens his priests. He even gave the position of consul to his favorite horse. So basically, it would be like the president being a horse. But at this time, remember now, the consuls they're kind of more figureheads than anything. His extravagances soon consumed the public treasures. Basically, he ran Rome dry of money. Caligula was forced to resort to every kind of extortation to obtain money. A lot of these times, he would just shake down the more wealthy citizens of Rome. Basically, give me money, or I'm going to make up a bunch of charges on you and have you put to death. So, if you were a wealthy citizen of Rome at this time, not the best. He eventually had to lead an army into Gaul, kind of where Caesar was, to hopefully grab all their money. It goes well, but he puts all the wealthy citizens of Gaul to death. Eventually, he ends up just getting assassinated in his palace because his guards say enough's enough. This guy's losing it, and he's not helping anybody. So they took him out, and that's going to be a common theme with these bad emperors. A lot of them are going to get taken out by their own people. So Caligula, lunatic, didn't start off as a lunatic, became one because he got sick, made his horse the president or the consul, right? And then eventually he gets assassinated himself. We're going to skip the Bath stuff for the Engineering an Empire video. The next guy, his name's Nero. You'll see him in the video later this week. Basically, Nero, he schizophrenic, I believe, would be what he had. Let's kind of just go through it here. So again, we'll see a theme. He persecutes Christians, and we'll talk about that with the fire coming up here. But the first 5 years of Nero's government were considered to be the happiest of the imperial era. So basically, the first 5 years he was in charge, it was seen to be the best 5 years of the Roman Empire. All right. Direct taxation was reduced, as well as various restrictive governmental regulations. So he's allowing more people access to better jobs, and also better status. Capital punishment was outlawed, and the games lessened while provincial administration continued to prosper as it had since the reign of Augusta. Now, this is where things take a turn. He eventually has his own mother killed. And this is where he starts to kind of lose it. He has been known to like be walking through the halls, and he thinks no one's there. He thinks he's alone, but his guards hear him just yelling at his mom. He's having hallucinations of his mom still being around. So he starts to lose it. Now Nero's known best for the fire, the burning of Rome. Okay, so he's gone a little crazy with the killing of his mom. So I'll just kind of read it real quick. In 64 CE, a fire broke out in Rome, which lasted for 6 days, consuming the greater part of the city. Nero was believed to have ordered the city to be fired. To obtain a clear representation of the burning of Troy, and while Rome was in flames, amused himself by playing musical instruments. I think it's a flute. Whether this account of Nero was true or false is debatable, but Nero did decide to blame this event on the Christians and inflicted upon them terrible cruelties and punishment. So basically what happened is Nero, what he really wanted to do is he wanted to kind of build this giant mega pleasure palace. But there's no room in Rome. Rome's pretty populated. So what does he do? He orders this section of the city to be burned. So like a large chunk of Rome burns to the ground. And Nero is supposedly the one who did this or ordered it. Once it was all burned, he cleared it all and then he built his pleasure palace right there. So obviously, not going to get you a lot of Roman citizen support. So what do? You blame it on the Christians. Because remember, Christianity at this time in Rome, it's like kind of brand new. But it's seen as like a culty religion. You definitely did not go to churches. You would practice this in like your basement. You would keep it really hush-hush to everybody in town. It was really kind of a blackballed religion at this time. So Nero blames it on the Christians, and eventually, to prove a point, he captures a bunch of them and tortures them and does all the bad stuff. All right. So there's the picture. It wasn't the flute. It was the harp. That's what it was. So what Nero does, the whole story of this is while the city burns, Nero sits there and plays his instrument, just kind of watching it goes. And you'll see that in the video, too. They really talk about it a lot. So again, here's another picture or a painting of Nero kind of mutilating bodies as an example down there. Let's move on though. Last guy, I think, Domitian. Yep, definitely the last guy. So here he is he's paranoid. All right, so he fears treason everywhere. He murders many. All right, so he surrounds himself with these spies and informers, and these spies and informers are basically just walking around town waiting for anybody to say something bad about Domitian. Once they say something bad, they have the right to just basically take them out. So, if you're in line at the store and someone asks you, like, what do you think of Domitian? You're honestly going to be scared to say anything bad because the person you're talking to might be a spy, but there also might be spies all around you just listening in your conversation. So a lot of people are, obviously saying, oh yeah, I love him. He's like the best guy we've ever seen, to try to like make sure that they don't get killed. Now, these spies and informers were not saints themselves. They would also kind of, I wouldn't say bribe you, but they would extort you. They would come up to you and say, hey, I heard you say something bad about Domitian, even though you did not. And they would basically force you to pay them money. Otherwise, they would just go tell Domitian that you said something bad about him, and then you'd be killed. All right, so these spies and these informers were obviously kind of being shady themselves. All right. To preserve the fidelity of the soldiers, he doubled their pay, basically just win their hearts by paying them more. While he won over the people of Rome by spectacular games at the Colosseum, Domitian extended the seating capacity by adding another tier to the Colosseum. He also added the Hypogeum, a vast network of rooms, cells, tunnels, and passages under the Roman Colosseum. So this is a common theme with Roman emperors. When things are going bad, they'll just start having more events at the Colosseum to try to distract the citizens of Rome. So he makes the seating capacity bigger, which is important because you can't like watch it on TV or listen on the radio. If you want to see these things, you have to buy a ticket to go to it. And obviously, the more capacity, the more people you can have at the stadium, the more people you can distract. All right. And he also builds kind of the underneath part of it. The tunnels, the cells, the networks. We'll see that with the Engineering an Empire video as well. Eventually, he tries to confiscate the property of the richer citizens. That's never a good idea. Eventually, he ends up getting assassinated by, I believe, other politicians, very similar to Julius Caesar. All right. So that's the bad emperors. We're just gonna talk about. We just talked about 4 of them. Jot down those ones. They'll probably be on the quiz. We got 5 minutes here. Let's see if we can get through the Colosseum. So the Roman Colosseum, right? I think we all seen, maybe heard of Gladiator. This is where all the gladiatorial games would take place. Here's what it kind of looks like. You got the Hippogeum down here. Something interesting about the Colosseum is that they would actually flood it sometimes and have naval battles in there. So it's pretty interesting. Let's kind of get the specs on the Colosseum here. So it's constructed under the Emperor Vespasian and was completed in 80 AD. It seats around 45 to 50,000 people. So it would be like if we took it's like if we took Target Field and the Target Center and put them together. That's basically how big it was. So it's like a really big baseball field or a really small football stadium, either or. Again, they would have the gladiatorial games there. It was used for distraction. They even had this thing. They had like a retractable canvas where if it was hot out, they'd kind of have these sails kind of come down. Well, you guys will see it in the video later on. But basically, they could actually shade the fans if they wanted to. If it was really sunny out, they would have sailors running these wires on top of the stadium, and they would kind of like put sails up there for the most part to shade everybody. I know I'm going fast, but that's okay. So we all think about Rome, we think about the Colosseum, but the number one sport in Rome is chariot racing, and that would take place at this place called Circus Maximus, or the circus. All right. Now, it's very similar to modern day NASCAR. All right, where you have your chariot racer and you're just racing in a circle and you turn left sometimes. All right. Now, when I mean this is the most popular sport in Rome, let me explain to you guys something here. Eventually, at the end of the Roman Empire, we're going to see chariot fans storm the emperor's palace because the emperor supports a different chariot team, and they're trying to kill him. And we have the emperor sick his soldiers, and they murder 30,000 citizens over a chariot race. Okay? Wild stuff if we're comparing their sports to our sports. Also, number one example right here, LeBron James. Everyone knows him. LeBron James' net worth, I just looked it up, is $500 million. Okay, that's how much LeBron James is worth total. Over his whole career, everything, endorsements, $500 million. The highest paid chariot racer made $15 billion. Billion. That's how much more invested in sport, especially in this one sport, the Romans were compared to maybe modern times. All right, so the number one sport in Rome is a 100% chariot racing. I'll have some video links of some movies down below, kind of explaining a little more detail on Circus Maximus if you're interested. I'll throw some stuff on the Colosseum with gladiators. We might be able to watch Gladiator if we're back in school or not. I'll kind of keep you guys updated on that. But the circus, you guys want to write down that the Circus Maximus number one sport is chariot racing. You want to know that it's very similar to NASCAR, and it's extremely deadly sport. And if you guys watch the video clips, you'll be able to see why it's so dangerous. All right, so this is part one of the notes. We're gonna go back through, and I'm gonna have to do like 10 more slides to make sure we can get through. You got the vocab for today right here, guys. If you do not know these, go back through or use Google to kind of help you out. But we talked about most of these, and the ones that we didn't spend a lot of time on, like Tottenberg Forest, for example, that'll get covered in the Engineering and Empire video, and obviously we'll cover it in our review day. But I'm going to stop right now, and then on part two, we're just going to look at the good emperors, and then we'll be done for today. All right, I'm going to pause now, and I'll restart here in a second.